Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to Mysteries from Beyond the Other Dominion. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Rule, and today we're going to ask if life exists on comets, try to solve the zombie puzzle, reveal secrets of bats, investigate the ghost of St. Paul's Rectory, and tell you about the haunted tunnels up in Portland, Oregon. But first, can life exist on comets? I have acquired a very hard-to-obtain 1985 NASA document. It's entitled Diatoms on Earth, Comets, Europa, and in Interstellar Space. Now, diatoms are microscopic organisms. This paper proves that comets contain both organic matter and diatoms. In other words, comets are life bearers. In 1986, the European satellite Giotto confirmed the findings of the NASA report. In a flyby of Halley's Comet, it discovered first the presence of organic compounds such as carbon, oxygen, nitrogen, hydrogen, the presence of viral particles, and the presence of bacterial particles. These discoveries actually argue for the idea that life on Earth was seeded here through comets. Three basic types of interaction may have taken place. First, Earth may have passed through cometary tails. Secondly, comets may have bombarded our atmosphere. And thirdly, of course, you can have the direct impact of a comet on the Earth. In each case, those comets are bringing in basic biological material that could set the stage for the evolution of life on our planet. One intriguing theory is that as comets approach the sun on their periodic rounds through the solar system, they are heated. Rising temperatures force certain types of matter to spring to life after decades of hibernation. When comets move away from the sun and temperatures drop below a certain level, this matter returns to a state of hibernation. This discovery is very important to our understanding of life on Earth. Life could have been seeded on Earth from passing comets, much like the way birds and other animals in their travels deposit seeds of plants which they've eaten in one place and taken to another. Comets, like birds, could be introducing viral particles, bacterial particles, and organic matter to our planet. And I believe the same process was probably repeated on other planets in our solar system and in other solar systems by comets therein. In other words, comets argue for the existence of life throughout the universe, bringing basic organic matter to each and every planet, setting the stage for the evolution of life. It's truly an important discovery. Now, when we return, the zombie puzzle. Stay tuned. Don't go away. Time now to solve the zombie puzzle. As you know from the movies, zombies are basically reanimated corpses that answer to only one voice, that of their master, the evil voodoo leader known as a Bokor. They're found basically in Haiti. How does a Bokor create a zombie? Well, he dangles over the body of a recently deceased individual a glass vial or bottle containing the individual's soul. In Haiti, some people bury their loved ones face down so they'll not be turned into zombies. Now, salt is something the Bokor has to worry about. If a zombie is exposed in any way to salt, he'll recall immediately that he belongs in his grave and head as fast as he can for that grave. There are many accounts about zombies. One case involves a beautiful young girl who rejected the advances of a Bokor, the sorcerer who practices the evil side of voodoo and is well known as a maker of zombies. This Bokor cast a spell on the girl, apparently killing her. Unfortunately, at the girl's burial, she proved to be too tall for a coffin, so her family had to break her neck in order to make her fit. And during this process, someone carelessly burned her foot with a cigarette ash. Not long after, the Bokor began appearing in the village with a beautiful woman constantly at his side. And like the dead girl, the woman's neck was bent and she had a burn on her foot. The question is, are zombies actually reanimated corpses, or is there something else at work here? Well, consider the case of Clairvius Narcisse, who returned to his village 10 years after his death. Apparently, he had been drugged by a Bokor and mistaken for dead. He claimed that at his burial, he could hear his friends talking, but could not respond because of the drug. After his funeral, his coffin was disinterred by the Bokor, who administered another drug which allowed Narcisse to move around in a state of near consciousness. He worked as the Bokor's slave for 2 years, forced to take a daily dosage of the drug, which kept him alive enough to work, but stupefied to everything around him. However, one day, the overseer forgot to administer the drug. Narcisse regained consciousness and escaped. He did not return home because he feared his brother-in-law, who had paid the Bokor originally to have him transmogrified into a zombie. He remained in hiding for another 8 years after his escape until his brother-in-law died. Then he came forth with this tale. If true, it argues against a supernatural aspect of zombies. I happen to believe it is true. I think we have solved the zombie puzzle. Now, for secrets about bats and your bat trivia question of the day. Let me extricate it here from its paper prison. The question: aside from being a comic strip and film hero, what is a Batman? Now the prize, the only prize, one pat on the back that you'll have to administer to yourself if and only if you get the correct answer. I'll take a sip of water and be back momentarily. Okay, time is up. What's a Batman? An aide to a British military officer. Now, for some fascinating facts about bats. The name bat is derived from the old Swedish term baka. Bats are found throughout the world. Now, they range in size from a bat that is the size of a bumblebee weighing only 1/14 of an ounce to the giant Malay bat that has a wingspan of 5 feet. Bats are the only true flying mammals. You've heard of flying foxes? That's just another type of bat. Flying squirrels, they only glide through the air. They don't fly. And of course, the most intriguing bat is the vampire bat, found in South and Central America. Now, contrary to popular mythology, they do not kill unless they have rabies. Usually, when they bite a victim, they only extract 2 to 3 teaspoonsful of blood. However, if the person or animal, such as a cow, is still in the vicinity, they will strike that same entity night after night after night. They acquire a taste for an individual's particular blood. Now, they have an unusual anatomical structure, a tubular stomach that allows them to assimilate blood. If human vampires exist, then they too probably have similar structures. And one other fact about bats, they are not blind. Contrary to popular opinion, they can actually see fairly well in the daylight, and at nighttime they have a special sonar that allows them to move even through a room full of wires. This was demonstrated in lab experiments. The bat is truly an amazing creature. Time now for the ghost of St. Paul's Rectory. That's in Greenwich, New York. Back in 1968, Reverend William Harris, his wife, and 2 daughters moved in. Almost immediately, the wife had an encounter with a supernatural entity. She was carrying a tray down the stairs when suddenly she felt an unseen hand try to wrest it from her. After that, the family experienced over 100 encounters with paranormal beings. In some cases, they saw entities. In other cases, they simply heard sounds or felt a cold chill. The Harrison daughters said they once saw a man dressed in clothes from Jesus' time. And a good friend, Paul Fong, an artist who once worked on the Blondie comic strip, also saw the ghost of an old man with a hooded cape over his head who looked like he also was from the biblical era. He was standing beside a stationary exercise bike with a handlebar jutting through his chest. But possibly the most startling instance was one that involved Reverend Harris himself. As the Reverend lay in bed one summer night, a shrouded figure jumped on his chest. The entity was an ugly green with a little yellow in it. It had laser-like eyes. And the Reverend psychically sensed that it was saying, "I want you dead," as though you had no existence at all. Reverend Harris believed that the entity was Satan. To save his life, he poked his finger in its chest and yelled, "Go! In the name of Jesus Christ, go!" Suddenly, the entity evaporated right before his eyes. After 1974, there were no more paranormal events at the rectory. For some reason, they simply ceased. But certainly, one of the most intriguing cases in the annals of parapsychology, for your consideration. When we return, all about the woman who knocked out boxing great John L. Sullivan. Please stay tuned. Welcome back. We have reports of a catacomb of haunted tunnels underneath the city of Portland, Oregon. Many of the tunnels are now filled with rubble and debris, but they hold a secret. In these tunnels, people have reported hearing the ghostly screams of men and seeing figures who lurk in the shadows and then disappear. One needs to dig into the history of Portland to uncover the mystery of the tunnels and its ghostly inhabitants. During the 1850s, Portland was in its heyday. It was one of the busiest ports in the Northwest. It was also one of the roughest. Gambling dens, saloons, and opium parlors lured sailors, loggers, and cowboys who came to Portland looking for a good time. But many of these men who came to Portland of their own free will left it as slaves. They were shanghaied. These men were drugged, thrown through trapdoors into the tunnels, and held unconscious in tiny cells until they could be sold to waiting ships. They'd wake up in the hold of a ship out at sea, where they would be used as forced labor until the next port, often too far away to return home.
This area that we're in right now is a good example of the cells that they would lock these Shanghai sailors and loggers and sheep herders and unsuspecting people up in. This one's made out of stone, an arched brick ceiling. Not exactly a very comfortable place to spend 2, 3, 4 days, maybe a week, awaiting your fate aboard ship. Some of these sailors that were Shanghai were gone at least 2 years before they found themselves back at the port here in Portland.
One of Portland's most notorious Shanghaiers, or crimpers as they were called, was Joseph Bunko Kelly. During his career, he sold more than 1,000 men into slavery. He would go so far as to rob fresh corpses from the cemetery and add them to a group of unconscious men who would be loaded onto ships like cargo. Another infamous crimper was James Turk, who shanghaied his own son, thinking that a stint of hard labor on the high seas would cure the boy of his drinking and other vices. It did, by the way. Portland's Shanghai days are now over. All that remain are the tunnels where you can find old broken bottles of whiskey, opium scales, and pipes, and tiny windowless rooms. And the ghostly remains of those lost men who ended their lives in fear, confusion, and despair are just beneath the city streets. You've heard the evidence. You decide. Is this a legitimate haunting or simply local mythology? And by the way, if you have any reports of underground tunnels in your city or hauntings of any sort, ghosts, UFOs, ETs, please call us on our toll-free 800 number. That's 1-800-45-RULE, RUEHL. We might just use something you submit, in which case you'll achieve a small measure of fame. And that's a lot better than a slap on the belly with a wet trout. Now, until next time, may the power of the universe be with you.